Can you go to baseball games? Can you watch football? Is it goyish?
Who's the guy with all the CTO on him? Big baseball fan. Burl Wine, big baseball fan. The Rav, Rabbi Soloveitchik, also a baseball fan. The Babe, Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, he was a big baseball fan. But if you ask people who are too heavenly good that they're earthly good, they're going to prohibit everything.
So what they will say, though, Rav, to hit you with the pre-show sort of question about baseball, is that they will say it takes time away from Torah study.
Well,
if you're spending time watching goyish, programming like baseball, when are you going to study Torah? That's what they'll say.
Mm-hmm. Well, they aren't very knowledgeable. This whole idea that people spent their whole day studying Torah. Let's take a trip back 2,000 years ago where books weren't readily available and the only Torah you would be getting would be from the academy, let's say. People didn't learn day and night. Now, a handful of people, the Mishnah says, how do you distinguish a big city from a small city? And it says there that you have 10 people who learn Torah for a living. That means all day long. Only 10 people. Now, if it made that statement, it's telling you that the ideal is not for everyone to learn Torah all day. And these people are the basis for Torah in that community, so they're teaching other people. This idea that the job of a Jew is to just learn Torah all day is completely nonsensical. There's people who have to build a country. There's people who have to educate children. There's people who have to build mikvahs and schools and houses. People have to practice medicine. This is only recent, I think, post the Holocaust, really created by Rav Aaron Cutler, this notion that we have to dedicate all our time, day and night, to study Torah. That is a new notion. People in Europe couldn't do that because they had to live. If they didn't work, they didn't eat. Now what you have is people learning in yeshiva and kollel, sending their wives to work. It's a big disgrace.
I'm going to hit you with a second counterpoint. Building a mikveh, it's productive. Slaughtering the cows, having a regular job, great stuff. But sitting down at a television and watching baseball, there's not producing anything. It's complete momish nonsense.
And it's nice. Everyone needs to let out steam. There's a statement in the Talmud that says that when someone dies, the first thing he's going to be asked when he gets to heaven is to give an account for every permissible pleasure that he denied himself. That means God created us to enjoy life. Clearly, we have to be productive, but this notion that I'm going to produce constantly and never rest goes against the principle of creation. God created for 6 days and he rested on the seventh. That means you can't constantly just produce. I think taking a few hours off, a few minutes off to enjoy yourself, listening to a song, watching a sunset with many people that would also call Gashmias, right? Or listening to music or taking your kid out to a baseball game. All these things strengthen your productivity. So it's kind of idiotic to say in some sort of Maoist fashion that I'm going to work you till you drop religiously. That means study Torah day and night for what? The Rambam doesn't bring down studying Torah as a mitzvah. He brings out studying and teaching, telling you that the whole purpose to study is to know enough to just hand it over to someone else. But that's not what's taught nowadays. The notion of studying for the sake of studying is brought down nowadays, which is the stupidest thing anyone could ever come up with. You study for the sake of teaching, for instructing others, not stam, not lishma, not for the sake of heaven. It's never enough. The purpose of learning anything productive, ethical, and moral is to improve the world. But you can't spend your whole day in the yeshiva. You can't spend your whole day in the university. You have to live with real people. You have to be a normal person. This attitude, this asceticism, again, is post the Holocaust. Pre the Holocaust, if they didn't socialize, if they didn't work, if they didn't live like normal people, they couldn't eat. And they wouldn't have a fruitful family or a fruitful life. All right, this whole notion that you have to send your wife to work and learn in a yeshiva all day long is stupid. It's a stupid thing. And it's not practiced by all Jews, by the way. The Hasidim don't do this. This is something that Litvaks do. And Sfardim in Israel kind of copy what Litvaks do, just because nowadays to be more primitive is to be more religious, unfortunately. It even says, actually the Rambam breaks it down, that if someone thinks that learning is for them all day, and they've already been doing it for 2 years, and they haven't reached tremendous heights, it's because it's not for them. They should just live a normal life or learn enough to get by. But this notion that everyone is required to dedicate their life studying Torah is not anything that the Rishonim or Tanaim or the Amoraim mentioned that was the ideal for everyone.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the reason why I call it the morning show. Every morning I record a video that I learn when I study and I put it out. And because I think that it doesn't make any sense. I could sit here in the room and read a little Torah, learn a little thing, but what's the point? I don't give anything. I like that the Rambam actually says that to study and
for sure you have to give.
Yeah.
So no, see, mysticism tells you to look within yourself. Torah tells you to look outside and see how you can make things better. It says that by Israel keeping these not even just plain mitzvot. A hok is a mitzvah that we don't even understand why we're doing. He says just by keeping these commandments, the world is going to say what a wise and discerning people. We have a responsibility to the rest of the world. Now, I'll tell you, most people who encourage people to learn Torah day and night actually don't study Torah. What they consider Torah is Kabbalah, Lekutei Moharan, Masilas Yesharim, things that have nothing to do with Torah. They're not studying Chumash and Halacha. They're studying everything else, Kabbalah, just because that's the problem with adding so much stuff, so much literature to Judaism, that you're never going to be able to scratch the surface because there's so much fluff. You're never going to get to the meat. So to really fulfill the mitzvah of studying Torah is studying the 5 books of Moses, the actual Torah, and Halacha. That means the rulings that came from the court, from the Sanhedrin. And that is what studying Torah is, not even studying the prophets. Studying the prophets is not studying Torah, because it's not Torah. Torah means instructions. It doesn't mean Nevuah, and it doesn't mean Medrash, and it doesn't mean Minhagim. It means the meat, the actual commandments. And there is a metaphysical aspect to it, but it's limited to what appears in the 5 books of Moses, not anything some Kabbalist may have.
I just love what the rabbi says because he makes so much sense. I study a lot. My day job is, I work 2 jobs, and my morning job is I do laundry. So once you get the 3 washing machines filled, you've got a half an hour to basically sit and listen to the radio or twiddle your thumbs. So I listen to a lot of things. And I was listening to Derek Hashem. I think it's a great book. And I mean, there's a lot of great wisdom in it. And I have a friend and she's like, oh, no, you shouldn't be reading that because you should be studying Torah and only Torah and you should never do anything else. And no. And I'm like, there's 24 hours in a day. I mean, yes, I believe we should study Torah. But I don't think I'm doing something terrible if I sit down for 20 minutes and watch Bugs Bunny with my granddaughter, I mean, that's important to her. Right. And I just, when I heard him, I thought, you make so much sense because she was like bashing me about how every minute of my life needs to be focused around Torah. And I'm like I said, I'm not saying that Torah is not important. I don't mean that at all. But you have to have a balance. You have to live your life. I mean, you can't just only look at it, have your nose in one book and never do anything else.
Right, so Derek Hashem, for those listening, is the way of God of the Ramchal. So I'm glad that she makes a distinction between that and Torah. I'm not against people studying Kabbalah. I'm not against people reading romance novels either. If you're doing what you have to do in terms of learning the Torah that you're required to learn, there's a commandment to go through the Parsha, let's say the Parsha Shavua, the weekly Torah portion, twice in Hebrew and once in Aramaic. The Aramaic is not necessary. It really means in the common tongue. But just Aramaic was a common tongue of Mishnaic times. And that's really what studying Torah was. And then Halakha got introduced to it. And that's it. And it really stopped there. But anything else is just for your enjoyment. But yeah, enjoy life. I mean, don't. As a matter of fact, the most famous rabbis all had careers. The Rambam was the doctor. The Ramban was the doctor. Rashi was a vintor, which means that he had a vineyard and he made wine. These guys worked for living. But for some reason, all the rabbis we see teaching on YouTube now, this is what they do for a living. When actually Pirkei Avot says, don't make the Torah into a spade, into a shovel. And he says that someone should hate the rabbinate to do this for a living. Now, clearly, children have to be educated. That's a completely different thing. But in terms of making a living, it's just trying to lead people is problematic because you become dependent to the people you're leading, which means that you're never going to tell them the truth. Because if you tell them the wrong thing, they're going to stop following you and stop paying your bills. So it's very important that teachers have a profession. It's always been like this till, again, like really post the Holocaust on a main scale. And before that, there were a few mystical groups that led towards that, but mostly everyone had a job. But it's very important to have a job.
We have someone in the side chat saying they're Andrea. Andrea, I'm sorry, I apologize. I've been reaching out to you for, I think it was been like 2 years. I've been following you on Twitter, and I've been reaching out to you. You never answer my questions or comments. She says we're Facebook friends. PM me if you would like to have me on your show sometimes. Well, I hate to break it to you. You're on the show with the Rav right now. And the Rabbi is really one of the only few people that opens up this called up people to come in. And, there's like maybe one other guy I follow that is a rabbi who opens it up. But really, you get a chance to, to dialogue with a Rav.
You have complete freedom of the pulpit here. You could come insult me on the air. Let's dialogue. There's no monologues here. This is a back and forth. And whoever presents Torah the best really should influence the audience. I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah. So that was just my subscribe, share. Go to check out bejewish.org. If you feel free to donate to his programming, I'm sure the Rab will appreciate that. So we do have Frank in the room. Frank, you're new. I haven't seen you here yet. How you doing, brother? You looking like you're comfortable, relaxing on the recliner. What's up?
I was going through Facebook a little, and there was my friend George.
First name basis, nice.
Yeah, no, he knows me well. He's actually a member of my lodge.
I know him very well. I did like that you said you have to be out in the world, because if you're not out in the world, and I would say what I'm saying probably has to do with anyone that is spiritual, you have to be out in the world to be a present, to bring a light. So I am totally in accord with that. That's the way it should be. And I remember being with some Kabbalah rabbis, and the rabbi actually was very heavy into, construction industry. Rabbiing was on the side for him. So I do agree. You have to be out in the world, have a presence in the world to bring your soul into the world, which will bring the spirit into the world, which will bring that force in by being there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really think you're right on it.
Well, some people are too heavenly good that they're no earthly good. And I see this both in academia as well as in mystical movements of Judaism. If people spend their whole time in the synagogue, how are they going to give anyone good advice? And if someone spends their whole time in the university, how are they going to teach children properly? Like if they don't have experience, like you said, construction, if they never built anything, how are they going to give you practical advice? And it goes the same like for the religious world. How are you going to listen to a rabbi who, from when he was young, all he knows is Cheder, Talmud Torah, Yeshiva, Kollel, and he's never had a job. Like he's never had to wake up in the morning and hustle out there to make more money. But in some way, he's your spiritual leader? Nonsense. This is why all our biblical heroes, they were shepherds. They were builders. They were people who did things. They didn't retire into piety. When they had a problem, they didn't first pray about the issue. They acted first. And when your back is up against the wall, you say, God, step in. But this notion that we pray first and we act later, nonsense. In the Talmud, there's a medrash of when Moses killed the slave master. How did he kill him? When he saw the slave master beating his fellow Hebrew, did he pray that God should strike him down? It says, no, Moses acted with his own fist at that moment. He rose to the occasion and he killed the brutal slave master. You're saying that time for praying is later. It's time to act now, constantly. We have to be active because making this world a better place is a team effort, a physical team effort. The way you make this world a better place is by making the world a better place. It's not by putting on tefillin and doing, all these mystical things. Clearly, all that enforces the ethical. The morality is the ethics. And this is what a lot of religious people lose because they think spirituality comes first. It says this in Pirkei Avot, and I disagree with the statement that this world is not the real world, that this world is a corridor, and the real world is the world to come. That's nonsense. This is the real world. This is why we have to make a distinction between what appears in the Torah and what appears in rabbinic legends. Because according to the Torah, heaven is on this earth and hell could also be on this earth if we don't make the right decisions. And the Torah never mentions an afterlife. Although I believe in an afterlife, I don't think the Torah requires me to believe in one. The Torah wants us to be more earthly conscious than heavenly conscious. Why? Because it doesn't mention heaven. Not saying that heaven doesn't exist, but if they wanted us to invest so much time in the afterlife, you figure something would have been mentioned about it. It's about leaving this world a little better than we found it. That's it. And that's all. We're all moving forward toward a better tomorrow. This is why Eastern societies really don't progress, because they're circular in nature. This notion like, oh, well, if I don't accomplish it in this life, I'll accomplish it in the next life is nonsense. It's about your offspring, leaving this world a little better. We're all marching towards a greater age. It matters. What you do matters. How you behave matters. That's what we're trying to encourage you tonight. People to consider a rational, purposeful, meaningful form of Judaism. A purposeful religion, the best purposeful religion that I could offer. I've been Jewish for over 22 years. Yeah, I don't see myself going anywhere.
It seems like we have Yaakov and Hope that have their hand raised. We got couples calling into the show, Rabbi, man. This is like a date night with the Rav. What's going on?
Date night.